The UFC is known for bruising combat and the roster of relentless athletes putting their bodies on the line to be the one whose arm is raised after a fight. With each UFC presentation, the fight gets bigger and badder. 2023 promises to keep this trend alive with some of the biggest fights the promotion has ever seen. We'll see the return of champions and the elite-level rematches fans are drooling for. What is on the calendar so far? Well, 2023 has a lot to promise fans of the UFC. There are already 5 blockbuster fights scheduled, and we know there will be more on the way, so for now let's take a look at the biggest fights we've got on the books for the new year. At number 5, we've got some names we will be hearing more about in the months and years to come. Adrian Yanez versus Rob Font. A lot of changes in each weight division. Every fight affects the rankings. Now that we know for certain that Sean O'Malley and Merab Valashvili are title contenders in the bantamweight division, the new kid on the block, who we all need to keep our eyes on, is Adrian Yanez. The young man, born and raised in Texas, is on a 5-fight win streak and undefeated in the UFC. Like most of the hyped-up fighters in the UFC, it's not just the winning that has him rising in the rankings, it's also his wow factor. Yanez is a super fun fighter to watch with explosive knockout power. He's won 5 times in the UFC, and he somehow won a $50,000 bonus each time he stepped into the octagon. His tenacious style is drawing fans to his fights. The only thing missing from Adrian Yanez's resume is the UFC. So far, he hasn't defeated an elite-level fighter. But hey, that's why these warriors pay their dues, because the time is now when Yanez faces off against Rob Font on April 8th. Unfortunately for Font, he is on a 2-fight losing streak heading into his matchup with Yanez. But on the flip side of that, the 2 losses come against former champion Jose Aldo and against Marlon Vera, who has defeated Aldo, 2 of the most nasty and toughest fighters in the division. Prior to those 2 tough losses, Font had won 4 fights in a row and maintained his rank as the 6th best bantamweight in the world. Font has gone to war 14 times in the UFC, so it's without a doubt he enters the fight against Yanez as a contender in the division. It'll be a lot of fun to see if Yanez can defeat Font, who has more experience and has the substantial length and reach advantage. Given Yanez's previous bouts, the fight shouldn't fail to deliver. This should be marked on every fight fan's calendar. It's gonna be a good one. The 4th most exciting fight of 2023 is another war in the bantamweight division, this one between 2 grizzled warriors, Marlon Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. This matchup will be the featured headliner of the 2nd UFC Fight Night in February, a nice treat early in the year for fight fans. Depending on how they look at what else shakes out in the division, it is highly likely that the winner of this war will face off with the champion of the bantamweight division later in the year. If Vera wins, then the chances of facing off against division champion Aljamain Sterling increase exponentially. This is because Sandhagen already fought Sterling and was beaten resoundingly. As solid a fighter as Sandhagen is, he never showed it in his fight with the champ. Marlon Chito Vera has been on a savage run through his last 5 fights, winning 4 of them. But it's not just the wins, it is who he has beaten and makes his resume seem so impressive. Thus far, Vera is the only fighter to hand Sean O'Malley a loss in the octagon, and in the last fight he dismantled former champion Dominic Cruz, putting him out in brutal fashion. Chito is one of the hottest fighters in the UFC, winning fights with beautiful finishing power. His game shows very few weaknesses, and that is why they fight. Corey Sandhagen is no easy out for anybody, regardless of his showing against Sterling. Similarly to Chito Vera, Sandhagen is a well-rounded fighter. He has proven he can finish fights on his feet or on the ground. Just like Vera, it isn't easy to find the obvious weaknesses in the Sandman's game. If we use the most recent fights by both of those men as a reference point, then it seems obvious that this fight has the potential to be a fight of the night and an instant classic you'll be watching years from now. Each fighter is an attacking fighter, so it may come down to who is more durable, who can outlast the other competitor. Let's visit the light heavyweight division for our 3rd most intriguing fight of the year, Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. The form for this title fight is a strange one. Former champion Jan Blachowicz heavyweights, Magomed Ankalaev, fought for the vacant title in December. You may recall that the fight ended in a draw, which in UFC speak is a yawn. Typically, this would mean an immediate scheduling of a rematch. However, Dana White was so unimpressed with the fight, he went a totally different direction and scheduled a war between Glover and Hill. Teixeira is a former champion, and he is one of the oldest fighters in the UFC. Hill is a hot prospect with a lot of potential coming into the bout. So now the two men will headline the first pay-per-view event of 2023. The UFC is betting that it will be a better fight than the last fight for the vacant belt. Glover is rarely in a dull fight, finishing his opponent in 13 of his 16 fights in the UFC, whether it's a stand-up battle or on the ground. The big Brazilian is comfortable everywhere the fight may take him. The new man Hill has lived up to his moniker Sweet Dreams. He knocked out Thiago Santos and had a knockout of the year worthy KO of Johnny Walker. The fight should be a violent and exciting affair. The winner may not go on to a lengthy defense of the title, but that certainly doesn't take away from whomever wins when they step in the octagon. This is a fight that probably won't go to the judges' scorecards, and it should start the year of UFC with a resounding bang. Our next fight is another doozy, this one of the interim featherweight championship. Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. The last 2 years of the featherweight division have been dominated by two fighters, and we all know who they are: champion Alexander Volkanovski and the Hawaiian fan favorite Max Holloway. But alas, 2023 will bring new blood to claim the championship belt in the interim anyway. Volk is moving up to 155 pounds to challenge for the title in that division. So the chance to become champion for the first time will be between Emmett and Rodriguez. The chance to be a first-time champ. Very exciting. There is some speculation as to whether or not this is the most worthy matchup, but regardless, it should be wildly entertaining. Emmett doesn't always blow fans away with his entertainment value, but he's as effective as any fighter in the octagon. He is on a 5-fight win streak going back to 2019, and he's got 3 KOs in the UFC. On the other side of the octagon is Rodriguez, who has never had a dull fight. He is known for fighting dangerously, sometimes recklessly, but that usually makes for an entertaining bout, so fans don't complain when his name is called. Fans shouldn't be disappointed. The chances of this one going to a decision seem small. The most highly anticipated fight of the year 2023 on the books so far is a battle of champions versus champion. This is one of the most talked about matchups in recent memory. UFC fans are going wild predicting and debating who will raise their hand when it's done. Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev. Champion versus champion just has a nice ring to it. It doesn't really matter what the names are, we know they are warriors and they've competed on the biggest stage and came out on top. It always has the making for something special, so it's an obvious choice for the most anticipated fight of the year. The fight will headline UFC 284 and everyone couldn't be more excited. This may be considered the pound-for-pound title as well, as both fighters have absolutely dominated their divisions. Volk has laid waste to the featherweight division, and Islam's rise to champion at 155 pounds surprised no one. This is crazy, but neither of these two men have lost a fight in the octagon since 2016. Volk is undefeated in the UFC with a record of 12 wins and 0 losses, but what makes this fight truly unique is that no one who has fought these two has come anywhere close to figuring out how to defeat them. They are puzzles which have yet to be solved. It will be a battle of styles, and seeing which will come out on top is going to be incredibly entertaining. Islam Makhachev is a world-class grappler wrestler, and he seems to be getting better with each fight. He dismantled Charles Oliveira and Dan Hooker, taking them down with ease, but Alexander the Great has only been taken down on a handful of occasions. But it is his striking that makes him deadly. He's an expert at finding his spots and keeping the pressure on. He's defeated far better kickboxers than Islam, names like Aldo and Holloway. At the end of the day, we can only wait. Most fight fans are saying this is the most exciting champ versus champ fight that Dana White and the UFC have put together in years. As you can see, there are some very exciting fights coming up in 2023, and these are only the fights that have been confirmed. We will also likely see some other huge names soon. The heavyweight division is primed for a championship battle, and it's almost assured we will see the Alex Pereira rematch with Israel Adesanya. Fans of the UFC are in good hands in 2023. Thanks for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed this video as much as we loved bringing it to you. We'll be back soon with more amazing content for you, but in the meantime, please hit the like and subscribe buttons to show us some love, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
And of all the superlatives...